Member for Lindsay. The question is the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Deakin.
Thanks very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. In listening to the various contributions in relation to the Centenary of Anzac and the 100th anniversary of the landings of Gallipoli, it's been very moving for me to hear the various stories, anecdotes, excerpts from letters written to loved ones from our Australian diggers who fought in that very fateful landing. And it engenders in me, and I think it engenders with everybody in this House and indeed around our whole country, a monumental pride in those great men and women who came before us, and quite frankly a feeling of inadequacy that no matter what we do in our lives, no matter what sacrifices we make in our lives, they will never ever amount to the sacrifices that those men and women voluntarily undertook. And it's lamentable that one of the things that we always focus on with the landings of Gallipoli, inevitably, is the fact that from a military perspective, it was not our finest hour from a strategic military perspective or from a planning perspective in a military sense. I think that's fair to say. But the courage of those soldiers who voluntarily stepped onto the sand and fought their brave Turkish enemies at the time is something that I think is a victory of their character and a victory of their spirit that, in a sense, has been something that we've been able to engender in this country ever since. Of course, when the mother country declared war on Germany, at the time Australia was bound to similarly do so. And if you look back at that 100 years, how far we have come as being a proud, vibrant, independent nation, while still embodying the values, the commitment, the sacrifices and the spirit of those men and women who volunteered to fight, is something quite extraordinary and amazing. And one thing I've really appreciated, even in my lifetime, is the sense of patriotism, the attention and the respect that we increasingly give to those men and women who fought in the First World War, and in particular those 20,000 Australians who fought at Gallipoli. In my own electorate of Deakin, I was very fortunate to be able to speak at a dawn service at the Ringwood RSL, and it was quite extraordinary for me when I got up to speak, and it was the first time in the dark that I was able to sort of look out on the crowd. We had to close down Maroondah Highway. There were 5,000 or 6,000 people who arrived at the Ringwood Clock Tower with the service organised by the Ringwood RSL, and it was absolutely awe-inspiring for me to look out at something that was more akin to a football crowd than anything that I'd seen before at a dawn service. And having grown up in Ringwood myself, I can track in my own mind the growth of that dawn service over the last 20 years or so, and that, I think, is a testament to our national leaders for many, many years, our civic institutions, our return service men and women who have gone out of their way to make the story, the courage, the commitment, the love of country of those men and women at Gallipoli real. Real for people in my cohort, my generation, and real for the younger Australians coming through. And not only at the Ringwood RSL, but when I attended services and marched with the Blackburn RSL or the Croydon RSL, or indeed spoke to members of the Mitcham RSL, the number of young men and women, students, schools who participated and got involved is very, very heartening for me, because one of our primary obligations and jobs is to ensure that young people coming through appreciate, even more than we appreciate now, appreciate more than we do, the sacrifice of those great Australians, because we are extraordinarily blessed. We must never forget, in the rough and tumble of arguments that go on in our society and in this chamber, that we are extraordinarily blessed, and none of it would be possible were it not for the sacrifice of those men and women in World War I and all of our servicemen and women in later years. What bigger sacrifice than to knowingly and willingly put yourself at harm's way for the love of your country, and more importantly, the love of our democratic freedoms and values. So it was also an outstanding honour for me as a Member of Parliament to be able to assist various local groups in my electorate of Deakin to appropriately commemorate the Centenary of Anzac through our Centenary of Anzac local grants program. And it was wonderful that the community, our return services, historical societies and others so enthusiastically embraced the opportunity to raise the profile, to really bring home to our young people in particular the enormity, the importance of the Centenary of Anzac. And I'm very pleased that I was able to recommend and support funding for the Croydon Historical Society, who are putting together a very important publication on the local servicemen and women who fought. Because what better way to absolutely create vivid images and knowledge in our young people's mind than giving them stories of local people. Somebody who might have been born and grown up on a street 2 minutes from your own home, who might have gone to your primary school, who may be a great-grandfather or grandmother to one of your mates at school. What better way to make it real for them, rather than just a purely historical exercise? What better way to make it real than to tell those stories? So I was very, very pleased to be able to support the Croydon Historical Society. I was also pleased that we were able to support the Australian Institute of Genealogical Studies, who similarly want to tell the stories of people, local people, who went away to fight, and enable their families now, many of whom may not know that they existed, may not know of their service, to be able to search for them, find them in an easy way. And similar to that is some support that myself and the members for Casey, Aston and Latrobe in supporting Eastern Regional Libraries, who have put together an outstanding database, an easy reference guide, an easy tool for anybody to search for their own loved ones and to get a full understanding of their service, what they did precisely, and really all the details that we can possibly summon about that person at an easy way for those people to find. We are very blessed. We're the Google generation. Everything's at our fingertips. But organisations like the Historical Society and the Institute for Genealogical Studies do that hard work for us and enable us to make those stories real. I was also very pleased to be able to support the Maroondah City Council and Whitehall City Council, who are putting together a program of events really over the next 12 to 48 months that will progressively ensure that we commemorate all of the key milestones for Australians in World War I over the next few years. And that's going to be very, very important, that we don't just move on from the centenary year. We actually ensure that we recognise appropriately all of the key milestones for Australians over that time, and for that reason I'm very, very honoured to be able to speak today, and I commend all of my colleagues who have also contributed to this debate.